transgender ideology, transgender, gender binary, public bathrooms ban on transgender athletes, ban on gender-affirming care. I can continue this list for a very long time, but all of it can be summarized by only one word: transphobia. Hi, I'm Kira, a transgender woman sharing my experience of transitioning from male to female. I'm recording this video in November 2024. Not long ago, the results of US presidential elections were announced. Despite living in Europe, this event will have a significant impact on me and every transgender person living in the Western world. The sad reality is that this impact will most likely be negative, making our lives harder, but we have no other choice than to stand against it and continue talking freely about ourselves. Today I want to talk with you about the general reasons and roots of transphobia. This is the third part of a long video series about social issues and struggles that transgender women face. The first part addressed general objectification of women and misogyny. The second part focused on sexualization of transgender women. I highly recommend watching those first to better understand the context of today's video. I will start with some statistics. Since 2008, DGEU reported over 5,000 cases of transgender people being murdered. 94% of victims were transgender women, and 2/3 of them were aged between 19 to 40. I also want to share the latest research about prejudice against transgender people. It included 16,000 participants across 23 countries. The results were upsetting, but not surprising. Transgender women are more likely to be ostracized than transgender men among all categories of age, gender, and skin color. This research also shows that transgender people in general are more likely to become victims of prejudice than other members of the LGBTQ+ community. This means we're the most vulnerable minority, which is one of the reasons why we became the #1 target in politics and mass media. I will leave the link to this research in the description below. There's another study published on the website of BMC in 2022 about discrimination and violence against transgender women. According to its results, 83% of participants reported of verbal harassment and abuse, while 56% reported of physical abuse. These numbers are shocking. Every second transgender woman has been a victim of physical assault because of her gender identity. There is no other category of people more likely to be victimized. The roots of transphobia lie in a lack of true understanding of transgender people, gender dysphoria, and transitioning in general. Society doesn't understand that, quote, trans women are women, has real reasons behind it. We think, feel, and act as women. Those who transition medically have bodies and hormonal levels identical to those of cisgender women. Gender dysphoria is not something invented by so-called trans agenda, but a medical diagnosis determined by professionals, with its treatment included in medical protocols. Transgender people have always existed. We are not a construct of modern society. It has always been unsafe to be a transgender person. Every day we step out of our homes, we should be aware of the danger. The most vulnerable among us are transgender people who don't pass as cisgender. I've said many times before that I'm strongly against using this term. I don't support the idea of gender binary, even though I identify myself as being at the farthest end of the gender spectrum. I transition from the one pole to the other without being in between. However, I firmly believe that every single person can dress, act, and look how they want and feel. For me, this ostracism wasn't the primary reason, but it was a significant factor why I decided to rush through my transition and do everything I could to appear more passable. Society struggles to differentiate gender expression from gender identity. Since most people are cisgender, they believe that one's inner identity should match one's outward appearance. If you're a woman, society expects you to conform entirely to its understanding of how women should look. If anything doesn't match, you're labeled as an inferior member of society. In the real world, transgender people often face public shame for not being passable. It has reached such a level that even cisgender women who don't meet social expectations are becoming victims. Let's remember female boxer Iman Khalif at the last Olympic Games. She was accused of being a trans woman, even though she never was one. When we publicly disclose that we are transgender women, many people immediately start looking for the remnants of our previous appearance and automatically assign us characteristics of another gender. No matter how well we match the appearance of cisgender people, one mentioning of word transgender attaches harmful stereotypes to us. Before I started my social media activity, I promised myself to never comment on politics. I deeply believe in every person's right to hold and protect their own opinions and beliefs. The only exception is when these beliefs come at the cost of others' well-being. When this happens, I am forced to defend myself and others who cannot speak for themselves. During the last elections in the US, Republican Party spent $215 million on anti-transgender ads. There are 1.6 million people in the United States who identify themselves as transgender, making up less than 0.5% of the population. In a group of 200 people, you would find only one transgender person, including trans men, trans women, and non-binary people. Knowing all these numbers, can we be the main cause of all the world's problems? Definitely not. So why is there such a political focus on us? The answer is simple. It's easy. It's easy to pick a small, vulnerable minority that can't adequately defend itself and paint it as the ultimate evil. Then it's easy to rally the majority to fight against this supposed enemy. Naturally, this majority will gather around a leader or a party willing to lead this so-called holy war. This is a common principle of controlling crowds. Find a weaker enemy or create one, and then convince people of an unavoidable threat. For example, the alleged danger from transgender women of harassment and violence in public bathrooms, and then unite people around combating this fabricated threat. I did my best to find any evidence of transgender people causing problems while using public bathrooms. Unfortunately, or rather fortunately, I found none. But for transphobic rhetoric, evidence isn't required. Nobody asks questions, and even if someone does, they are often ostracized for challenging the narrative. Another principle of propaganda is that the more absurd the claim, the less society questions it. For example, the now infamous claim that minors are undergoing gender-affirming surgeries in schools and being pushed to transition by teachers. Conservative communities consumed and believed this information without hesitation. Explaining that minors cannot undergo gender-affirming surgeries, except in rare cases requiring legal and medical review, is often pointless. At most, minors may be prescribed puberty blockers, which are reversible and allow time for better understanding of gender identity. Decisions to transition medically are made only in adulthood, not during childhood. This propaganda works because of a lack of education. It's much harder to convince anyone of misinformation when they have even basic knowledge of the topic. For the majority, the only knowledge about transgender people comes from the adult content and mass media portrayals. This perpetuates negative stereotypes, which have no basis in reality. Right-wing narratives often claim that transgenderism, the term that they use, is contagious and must be silenced to save humanity. However, research and articles such as one by Julia Serrano debunk these claims. The rising number of people identifying as transgender is due to rising visibility and improving access to information, not contagion. We also face significant barriers to healthcare. Access to counseling, hormone replacement therapy, and gender-affirming surgeries are restricted by gatekeeping. We must prove our right to live authentically, which can take years without significant financial resources and access to informed consent system. Unfortunately, some don't make it through this grueling process. The same gatekeeping extends to legal documents changes. Depending on where you live, changing gender marker can take months, years, or be outright prohibited. This severely affects transgender people's mental health and overall well-being. Another major contributor to transphobia is religion. Many religious communities are welcoming and accepting transgender people. Unfortunately, some of the largest denominations often shape cultural attitudes, laws, and social norms that oppose us. These conservative beliefs clash with understanding, acceptance, and support for vulnerable minorities. Religious teachings frequently portray transgender identities as sinful and unnatural. Today, I won't dive deeply into the role of religion, as it requires a separate, detailed video. Trans people have long been suppressed by stigma, medical gatekeeping, and social isolation. Many of us are mentally exhausted by the constant fight for our existence. This is precisely what transphobic rhetoric relies on: our silence. But silence is not an option. Education is our most powerful tool. We need to educate others and ourselves. We must explain why we are transgender and what limitations and struggles we face every day. We must use precise language to communicate our experiences clearly. We also need to focus on educating the younger generation. Children should learn that transgender people exist and there is no reason to fear us. They should know that if they feel something is wrong with their gender identity, they should not hide it or be ashamed. They can talk about it and seek help. Kids should also be taught not to shame others for looking or acting differently, but to offer support instead. Looking at the history of other marginalized groups, such as women, indigenous and black people, gay and lesbian communities, it's clear that progress happens only through action and effort. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experience how transphobia impacted your life. Are there any topics you think deserve their own video? Please share them in the comment section below. I'll read every single one of them. Thank you for being with me. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and see you soon in my next video. Bye!